Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our July Catapult webcast with computer-aided technology. My name is Chris Dubuque. I'm going to be the host for today's event, but the real person you're here to see is our presenter, Dennis Barnes, an application engineer located down in our Albuquerque office.
Thanks a lot, Chris. The good news is you won't have to see me. I'm here for you to hear me and watch what I'm going to be doing with DraftSight. So the title is using DraftSight as your drafting board. And if you read the synopsis, you kind of understand what we'll be doing here. But if you're not familiar with CATI, let me go ahead and just talk a little bit about who we are and where we are. So we're actually in the United States right now. No international offices yet, but we have over 30 offices in the United States across 30 states. And we actually service and support over 15,000 companies. What does this mean? Well, it means that you have a one-stop shop for training, for tech support, for 3D printing, 3D scanning, and design automation solutions. We have over 150 engineers at your disposal with specialties in simulation, electrical, and additive manufacturing, as well as SolidWorks. And today, DraftSight will be talking about that. So we also have also products and software services for 3D printed parts as well. And since we have regions, specific offices across the regions of the United States, we have local offices where you can actually attend live training. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to take a DraftSight and reproduce something from a legacy drawing. And I'm going to be using some of the tools that I learned when I learned to draft on a drafting board. So some of the techniques I'll be showing you are for drafting on a drafting board and creating these different views, and for using DraftSight to do this specifically. So we have a very simple drawing here. We're going to be taking a look at some of the critical dimensions here to drive our objects inside the DraftSight model area. And so let me give you kind of a preview of where we're going to be going, okay? So we're going to have to get things started here by creating a template. So we'll create a template. It has the boundaries around the title block and so forth. And then all of the settings that we're going to need for the drawing that we're going to be creating. Then we're going to create specific layers, because one of the greatest powers of DraftSight is the ability to have these objects on these specific layers and hide and show and lock and freeze and do these different things with them, so that we can really define our drawing. Then I'm going to be showing you what I've done to my mouse gestures, and I'll show you how they work. I'm not going to be showing you how to do it, but if you have a question, we can show you, and how I've set up mouse gestures to kind of help my tools be a little bit more productive. You'll see me using a lot of different tools. You'll see me using mouse gestures. You'll see me using direct input commands similar to AutoCAD. So if you have questions, like Chris said, put them up in the Q&A there or on the chat. Then we're going to just move forward, and we're going to take that first view off that drawing, that legacy drawing, and we're going to look at the critical dimensions, the critical geometry, and start to evaluate how we're going to be building this by block. And then we're going to use a technique called layout lines or projection lines, any way you want to call them. I don't have a specific definition for what they're called, to create the projected views and make sure that they're aligned. So let's take a look at the drawing template. This is the drawing template that I've created. You'll see it come up when I open DraftSight and start my new drawing. Then these are the layers that I'm going to be using inside that drawing. So I've got a center line layer. The depth point layers is the layer that I'm going to be using for my projection lines. The dim layers are dimensions. The hidden layer is going to have everything, all the hidden lines. The object layer is going to have all the model items, model drawing items, and the title block, obviously self-evident as the title block. Okay, and I've set up my mouse gestures to have 8 gestures, and you can see how I've defined them around the circle there. I'm not going to read to you, so you should be able to read that yourself. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop forward a big view of that drawing. So here's the drawing here. Let's take a look at when we move forward here into what we're going to be creating. So I'm going to start with the front view. And what I'll be doing is I'll be creating this base, and then I'll start with this curve edge here by creating a circle, and then we'll add in everything inside there. Then I will create the projection lines to create the top and the right views. So let's go straight to DraftSight and get started. So I'm going to hit Control N for a new document, and I'm going to turn on, this is my template. And what I've done here is I've moved things around just a bit so that my origin is right here so that I can use this when I create that view. So the first thing I'm going to do is save this. I'm going to save this in a folder that I've created, Basic Repro. And I'm going to, my view that's active right now is the object view, but I'm going to hide the title block because I don't want that distracting. So I'm going to use the mouse gestures to create a rectangle, and I'm going to use absolute positioning for this. So I'm going to put it at 0, 0, and my offset is going to be 150 and 10. Something didn't happen properly. Let's try that again. 0, 0, 150, 10. So there's my original rectangle. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a circle to create that curve at the top of the tombstone feature. And that's going to go at 50, 35, and the radius is going to be 20. Let's try that again. 50, 35. I think all I put in there was 2. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and start another rectangle, and I'm going to put it right at this edge here, the quadrant point, to start the rectangle. And then I'm going to go 40 in the X and minus 35 in the Y so that it comes back down to the base. I'm going to start another rectangle. This one, I'm going to start at 30 and 3. And then I'm going to go 40 minus 10. So the purpose for that is to create this area for the cutout that's underneath the drawing, underneath the bottom there of the view, this little cutout area here. So the problem I had before is when I tried to use the fillet tool inside DraftSight, sorry, I use SolidWorks all the time. But inside DraftSight, using the fillet tool for this particular object here, I needed an 8mm fillet. And because this one line here from here to here was so short, it wouldn't let me create a fillet. So I'm going to have to work around that. So I'm going to use the circle tool to do that. And I'm going to use a tangent radius circle to put this, and I'm going to use the 8mm radius. So I'm going to put that circle right there in that corner. Now you notice it doesn't really radius this very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it so that the circle, I have to turn on my snapping here, so that the circle actually intersects with that corner right there. I need that same radius on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and use the line tool to create a center line, and then I'm going to use a mirror command to mirror this circle across this line. Now I'm ready to use my trim tool. This is the power trim tool in DraftSight, and it's so powerful because watch what I can do with it. As I just drag across the different lines, it just removes what I don't need in my drawing here. So as I continue across here, now I have my basic outline for the front view there. There's some other things I want to add. some fillets, and maybe some center lines. Now that I'm in the object view, though, I still want to continue adding things in the object view. Something that'll help me is if I explode some of the items that are still kind of put together like this. See, when I select that, I get 3 lines. When I select that, I get 3 lines. So I'm going to explode that so that those are separated. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start my fillet tool. The radius is going to be 3, and I'm going to use the M command to create multiple radiuses. Multiple radii, I should say. Get those edges in there. So there's my radii. I'm going to go ahead and add the hole that I need in here. Now, the great thing about DraftSight is they have this thing called mechanical, this tab called mechanical that has basically hole wizard and hardware, fastening hardware. Well, I'm going to go ahead and use this to insert a hole in here. So here's the dialog for the hole. I have counterbore, countersink, through hole, tap, and slot. So what I've done here is I've got my active standard as metric. I'm going to use a hex bolt, and I'm going to use an M8 bolt. And that gives me 9mm hole diameter in the middle, 18 by 5.68. So when I click OK, I can snap this to the center, and there's my counterbore. I'm going to go ahead and swap layers here. There's my layer tool. I'm going to go ahead and activate the center line layer. Actually, I'm going to activate the hidden layer so I can put everything I need on the hidden layer because I'm going to be deleting some of the things that I'm going to use here. So I'm going to start a line at 15, 0, and I'm going to go 10mm, 90 degrees. And then the next line is going to be at 135, 0, and I'm going to go 10mm, 90 degrees. So those are going to be the center lines for the holes that I'm going to be putting in this area right here. These holes that I'm going to put up in this view are being represented by the center lines down here so that I can add these hidden lines. Well, to add these hidden lines, all I need is rectangles. So if I turn on my rectangle tool, go to the right direction here, rectangle, and I turn on an option called CE for center rectangle, I get an option to go 3.5 by 5, and it automatically creates that center line, that hidden line for that rectangle. Repeat the command. And there's the hidden lines. I'm going to go ahead and leave those in here for now because I'm going to need those later when I create my projection lines. Next thing we're going to do now is we're going to move on to dimensioning. So I'm going to turn on my dim layer, and I'm going to start with my dimension tool. That's an automatic dimension. I'm going to go ahead and just put in a linear dimension in here. Repeat that. And again. Then I'm going to put in a radius dimension here. And here. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a hole call out in here. I don't need any of the dimensions. If you look at this dimension here, I've got pretty much everything I need. Oh, I need one more linear dimension. Let me go ahead and put that in. I think I turned on the line tool by accident. There we go. All right. Now to add my hole callout, I need to go to the mechanical tab and select the hole callout. So you'll see that the line, the direction of this is going orthogonally. If I hold down the shift key, it allows me to override that and put that dimension out where I need it to. Now, I want you to notice that the dimension didn't come in as blue. Now I can leave that like that since it's a hole callout, and it'll be on the layer, because if I look at the properties for this, I see that it's on the object layer. So for whatever reason is going on with DraftSight, it put the hole callout on the same layer as the hole. Okay, now I figured out a workaround for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And I'm going to move the hole to the dim layer. And then I'm going to make sure that's the right color. So I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to go back to So let me go ahead and try to put this in and see what happens now. There we go. So see, it created that in the right layer now. All right, so now I'm done with this layer. I'm going to go ahead and start my I'm going to go to my def points layer now. I'm going to hide the dims, and I'm going to start creating the projection lines that I need for my top view. So I'm going to turn on the line tool. I'm just going to create one line up here. And then I'm going to use the copy command to copy that line to the major points that I need for my extensions. I'm going to use tangency here. I'm going to use this point here so that I can set up what I need for the hole when I project it to the top view. I want to make sure I get in here nice and close because those center lines go past it a bit. So now I have my projected lines for my top view. All I need to do now is go back to my object and start the rectangle somewhere up here. And instead of using an absolute, I clicked right there. So now from there, I'm going to get a relative rectangle. So I set that to 150 and then 40. So there's my first rectangle. The next rectangle is going to be right here. It's going to start here. And it's going to go 40, 10. So there's my object rectangle. Let me go ahead and put these in here. I need the dimensions here to reference them. So this hole callout here is 18.01 by 5.68. So let me go ahead and repeat the rectangle. Start here, 18.01, 5.68. And then the last rectangle, I can just drop right in here like this. All right. I'm going to go ahead and throw a line across here between these two lines. This is going to give me the location of my circles, or the holes that are going to be in the top plate here. So I need this line to be 10 millimeters away from this line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Manage tab, and I'm going to query the distance between these two lines. And I see that the distance is actually 7 millimeters, or it's actually 7 right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this three millimeters. Turn on my snaps here so that it snaps 3 millimeters. Throw a dimension in there just to make sure. That's perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hide my def points. And let's take a look at what I have here. For my center line, I'm going to go ahead and move this to the center line. Okay. I'm going to grab my hidden, and I'm going to move these two items to the hidden lines. Now you can't really tell what those are doing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the, it's a dashed line, but the scale is a little bit high. So I'm going to go ahead and make that scale 0.5. Now you can really see that those are hidden lines. Next thing I'm going to do is add my fillets. Radius of 8, M for multiple. Just go around and add my fillets. Radius of 3, multiple. Since this is a rectangle, it's going to continue to trim just the rectangle, and it won't trim anything else. I have a hidden line I need to bring in here from the bottom. So I'm going to turn back on my def points, and I'm going to create another line from here to here. Then I can go ahead and add my holes. This time I'm going to use a through hole. It's already been set up since I used it last time as a seven millimeter. I'm not sure why it's looking like a partial hole there. That doesn't make any sense to me. Let's see if there's something I can do different here with that. Through hole. Nope. Looks okay. I'm not real happy with this preview, and I'm not sure what's going on with it. I'll have to check it out later. So, okay. Now I'm ready to put my dimensions in. Oh, that's why it came in on the hidden layer. Maybe that's the problem. Let's go ahead and bring that in on my object layer. Much better. See? Okay. Now back to the dim layer. Says that the active layer is hidden, so let me unhide it. All right. What other dimensions do I need there? R8, I need my whole dimensions, okay. And there's my whole dimensions. Last but not least, I'm going to move the hole. Remember, we had to do the workaround for the hole call out. So I'm going to go ahead and move this hole and this hole to the dim layer. And then I'm going to add the hole call out. See, it still didn't do it right. So what do I need to do here? Let's see. There we go. So now I have my hole call outs and my dimensions for my top layer, my top view there. Okay. Let me go ahead and hide that layer and move on to the def points layer, which is my projection lines. And we're going to add horizontal lines here to help us with the side view. We're going to need to add quite a few, so let me show you what we're doing here. I'll go ahead and start at this corner just so that it lines up. And then I'm going to copy that line. So every place I need to create some geometry, I want to copy this line to. Then I'm going to go up to the top view and do the same thing. Now you'll notice some of my lines here don't actually go as far as I need them to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy one of these horizontal lines out here somewhere, just somewhere out here. And then I'm going to use my trim tool, select the line to cut with, and then if I use the shift key, it actually extends those lines out to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start my rectangle for the bottom base. I'm just going to start it over here because this is the only alignment I need. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up 10, over 40 and up 10. So you'll notice that that rectangle was actually put on the def lines. I can move that if I want by just selecting it and moving it to the object layer. So see, now it's white. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and copy a line, a projection line up to the top so that I can use it for my diagonal line, because I need a 45-degree line here. Starting at this corner and going to this corner. So what that gives me is that gives me the intersection of my top view and my side view extension lines or projection lines there. So when I copy a line, all I have to do is move it to the intersection points, and it now projects down onto what's going to be my right view. And I can add these rectangles very quickly. I'm just going to go ahead and move to the object area now, the object layer. Make sure I select the right line for my rectangles. All right, now it looks like I've added everything. Let's go ahead and hide the def points, see where we're at. This looks really good. These items here that are going to be hidden lines, I'm going to go ahead and move those to the hidden lines folder, to our layer, I mean. And I'm going to go ahead and change them to 0.5, the scale, so that I can see that they're really hidden lines. Go ahead and start my fillet tool. Radius 3, multiple. So when you've got these rectangles fully defined here, it makes it difficult to do these fillets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and explode these rectangles. That way, when I do the fillet again, I don't lose so much material when it does the trimming. So all I have to do is add back in a line here. Then all I need is my dimensions. Turn on my dimension layer, make it active. Screwed that up. Go ahead and use the linear dimension here. And then a radius. Looks like I missed moving a couple of things here. Let me go ahead and grab that. Move that to the hidden. Change it to 0.5. That looks really good there. So I've got these dimensions here. I think I'm pretty much done with all my dimensions. Looks like I've got everything done here. I've even got my multiplier there for my whole call out. Now I'm going to go ahead and modify the text of the dimensions a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to add TYP at the end of that one. And this one, I'm going to make this a reference dimension. If you want to be really picky about your dimensions, you can also even split your dimensions. With this tool right here. I'm going to go ahead and specify the gap here because I don't want it to be such a big gap. And I've got another one right here. And another one right here. That makes the drawings nice and neat. You don't have crossing dimensions. You don't have any other issues. Some other modifications that you can do here is you can flip the arrows to the outside. The last thing I'm going to do is move this to a place where I can print it. So I'm going to create a named view. Here's the properties for that. I'm going to create a new one. We're going to call this demo. And I'm going to specify the boundary. I want to make sure my boundary goes around my title block too. So I want to make sure that that's fully showing. Now I can create that named view. That's my named view. I go over to sheet 1, which is my printable area there, and I insert a view. Right now, this is my current view. But if I wanted to switch that to a named view, oh, I must have forgot to click OK when I created that view. But it did actually create a really nice view in here. So there are some things here that I might need to take a look at, okay? It looks like the font for some of my lines is not consistent. So I want to go back to my model. I'm going to delete those. And I'm going to add those as 0.5. Take those two, change that scale to 0.5. Then I'm going to select everything in the hidden layer. So I'm going to isolate the hidden layer. by selecting one of the items. Everything now is my hidden layer. So I'm going to select everything here, and I'm going to I need to move it to the back. And I've lost that option. Hold on a second. Maybe it's in my sheet here. I'd like to take those hidden lines and move them to the back, but I've lost that button and I can't remember where it is. There it is. All right. Now that I know where I'm going here, back to isolate. All right. Now that I've got that moved to the back there, now you see that you'll see the results when I go to the sheet here. So when I go to the sheet and I can zoom in here, you'll see the gray lines have moved behind the black lines. So when you go to print this, it'll be a much neater print when you get ready to print this. So I'm not sure where I am on time. Oh, 45 minutes. Well, that's not too bad. So that's about it, you guys. That's what it takes to take and use DraftSight as your drafting board to create the 3 views from a legacy drawing.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much, Dennis. Seeing it in the real world, actually going through a full project is something that I've not seen in DraftSight and haven't used for a long time. So I haven't seen any questions, but I'll keep the webcast open for a few more minutes. So if those questions do trickle in towards the end, we can go ahead and make note of those and get everyone the answers that they need.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you spending some time with me today. I know I went over a little bit, but I think it's well worth it because hopefully you learned something